Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And in the previous episode you've seen on how we've built this framework for the door of the barn. Now that is now complete, and in this episode we're going to put the paneling up. We're going to put the planks up in the front, and we're also going to put the locks in and some other support parts. In part 1 I received a lot of comments, and thank you for that. But there were a few comments that I really need to address. There was one about bracing the frame, so to prevent it from sagging. And the comment was that I should not be pulling elements. So this is like a pulling element, that I should be using pushing elements in the other direction. Well, reality is on this gate here, I'm having both. I have pull and push, which is going to make it a bit stronger, and it's going to neutralize the tension on the outer beam. So right here, this is my inner beam where the hinges are on. And as you can see, I have a beam coming in like this, which is actually a pulling beam. So if the door is going to try to sag, it's going to pull on this side. But I also have a second beam coming in from the top. This is a push beam. So the two are now lifting each other. And I've done this throughout this gate. There was another comment that referred to those bolts, the bolts that were going through the beams to hold things together, that it's going to sag because these bolts are not going to be able to hold that up. Well, that is true because the bolts alone would not do it. But I'm using those bolts. I'm also using these supports on the different sides. And you can see I've made a lot of triangles. And triangles are by definition very strong. Furthermore, we have on all the connection points between the vertical and the horizontal beams of the frame of the door, I have these metal anchors that are screwed down. So that also provides an additional enforcement besides the big bolts that are coming through. I also added further enforcement with these metal plates, and they are in the different areas of the metal corners, fitted in different areas. So all by all, this is very solid. Anchors with 3 bolts that are holding the hinges, but at the same time supporting the vertical beam and the horizontal beam. And in my opinion, this door is very sturdy. It's not going to sag, especially not once all the planks are going on, because that is also going to create some additional stiffness. So for the paneling, I'm going to use planks that are made out of tongue and groove. And here is that plank, and you can actually see the tongue and the groove. They will slide into each other. They're about 14 centimeters wide, I think, and we just need to put them up. They're not very heavy, by the way, and I chose that deliberately. I could have gone for oak, but that would have been very expensive, and probably it would only be as good as this thermal wood, because I got told and guaranteed that this will last 25 years even without treatment on the outside. Because the way it's been treated. I don't know if you have it where you live, thermal wood, but this apparently is the new thing. So, and on the top, we will actually cut the curve depending on the arc of the bricks above the gate. So, looking at the inside of the gate or the door, I need something right here to hold the wings into place. So when I close the gate, I need to have a deadbolt that I can slide up to the top so it's held in place. I'm going to do this by installing a big wooden beam from this side to the other side, and that way I can then have the gate leaning against it and properly lock it with a deadbolt onto that. Therefore, I will need to make some rock solid metal brackets, and that's the first thing we're going to do. Once I have these brackets created, I'm going to install them on the wall, and then we'll install that beam. So I have kind of pre-cut already some scrap metal, which I'm going to use to create those brackets, and it's basically this kind of stuff. So I have one flat plate, and I have the other one to be welded on there. Now you see that hole there? Well, that hole is actually to bolt down this bracket to the wall. And I'm going to use this threaded rod that will go through it, like so, and then I have a big nut up here. Now, the length of this will actually go into the wall, so I have to drill a deep hole. And now you're probably going to wonder how I'm going to hold this. To hold the threaded rod into the wall, I'm going to use a product which is called vinyl ester, and it's a heavy-duty vinyl ester. It's in fact a two-component element. And if I take the tip off, if I can get it off, because I used it before, you'll see that we have in the middle a black part and then a gray part on the outside. Well, these are the two components, and when you push this into the hole, there's a special sprout that goes on here that mixes it all. And then, once that is done, you turn in the rod basically into it, and then you get a real solid fix, much better than all the other plugs that you can put into the wall. So I'm going to give him a couple of coats of paint so it doesn't rust, and then we're going to mount him. So I'm going to install the brackets on the wall, and I'm going to use these threaded rods. So first of all, I need to drill a hole. Let's see. And I think this is okay. So now I need to get all the dust out before we lock it into place. So I'm going to use some compressed air to get all the dust out of it. And this is the sprout I was talking about before, and you can see inside we have kind of a spiral, and it's going to mix the two components. This is really good stuff to work with. I really recommend this. If you have to put plugs in or anything like this, this stuff is really going to make your life a lot easier. Of course, the bigger the hole you make, the more that goes inside, right? All right. Oh, this is better. Is wrapped around. I know I should use gloves, but I don't have any with me here, so. So now I'm going to let this sit for a couple of hours, and then I can put the bracket on. I also installed on the bottom what we call a kickboard. It's a little bit thicker than the planks, and it's quite common to see that on old gates to have a kickboard on the bottom. So I just did the same. In many cases it is because wooden planks tend to rot at the bottom. So in this case, if that rots, I can just replace it without having to replace all the planks on the top. Although I don't think this is going to rot at all. But you never know. So this is about an hour ago that we put this stuff into the wall, and you can see already how solid it has become. So the drying time of this product is about 140 minutes at 10 degrees centigrade, and this is what we have here. So that should be okay by now. I'm not going to tighten it fully. I'm going to let it sit till tomorrow, so it's really hard. But here's our bracket. So that's going to go on here. All right. So this stuff is really good stuff to use. So the rod I'm using is an M14. So that is more than strong enough to hold that beam that will be up here. So it's time to put the beam up, and hopefully it fits. And it does fit. And I already have pre-drilled the holes, so that makes it very easy to do. So this is the old deadbolt that I recovered from the door or the old gate. And we're going to put this one back up because I think this was built really, really nice. So we're going to put that up now, and I will need some spaces, so I already made a couple of spaces, so that's going to go underneath. And yeah, that should all work out just fine. I don't know how old this is, but it must be fairly old. So the deadbolt is going to go on one side of the gate, and that's going to be the side right here. So I need to see more or less where we have to place it. I think if I do it here, that would be all right. And now we can lift that up and hold things in place. Right, so the next thing I need to do now is to get a metal bar here. That will go right here. So let me measure that. 10. All right. So let me go and get a piece of metal. So let's see. So this is my bracket for the deadbolt, and I just had to rebuild it so it would actually fit. And now that should work out just fine. We still have to put a deadbolt up on the bottom, but this one right here is working like a champ. For once the sun is out, so let's see how many planks I'm going to need. This is 188. I also have installed a deadbolt on the bottom, so I screwed it down towards the beam and then drilled a hole in the concrete, and that's basically it. There's nothing more to it than that. I also installed 2 push plates in metal. I drilled some extra holes. I didn't need those on that side, but I was a bit too eager with drilling, I guess, but it doesn't really matter. The planks are 13. So 188 divided by 13, that gives me about 14.5 planks I'm going to need for one wing. I can use nails or screws to put the planks up, but in each case they will have to be stainless steel. Otherwise I'm going to get these rusty spots on the wood. So I decided to go for stainless steel screws with a small head. So as we're going to put the first plank up, in the middle of the door frame, I will have to cut off the edge of the plank. Well, it's a little bit windy, so I better make sure that this side stays open. All right, so I'm gonna place my first plank. And I'm going to trace it in the back so I can cut it. And I will have to do this for every plank. But obviously I'm not going to do plank by plank. I'm going to put a couple of them up next to each other, trace 3 or 4, and then cut it. Otherwise I have to get up and down about 15 times. Into place. So while I'm going along, I'm always trying to make sure that the planks are really properly seated, because otherwise you're going to end up very weird on the end and everything will be slanted or crooked, and that's what I want to avoid. So this wing is now complete, and I think it's looking quite all right. It went quite smooth. It took me about an hour and a half to do this wing. Now I'm going to do the other one. And about 200 stainless steel screws. So even from the outside, this is looking quite all right. I did not put the screws all the way deep into the wood. They're sticking out just a little bit, not too much, because they have like a conic head, not to splinter the wood, but this went quite smoothly. So I started with a full plank in the middle here. I ended up with a piece on the side. And this is the small piece that I had to fill in against the wall. And I do prefer to do this towards the wall and not in the middle of the gate. Now the kickboard on the bottom, this will be painted black or very dark gray, most likely with the overlap that I'm going to put up here. So now I'm going to start the second part. As you can tell, the gate is almost complete. We've got all the paneling up. Now we still need to close this gap with an overlap. So the gap is 3. So I'm going to overlap with 2. Right. So we're going to put one in place first, and then we align the top, and then we put the other screws into place. All right, so now it's just a matter of putting all the remaining screws up, and then that should be okay. The next thing we need to install is the lock on the gate. So this is going to be the lock. It's a bit tight. I painted it black. It's actually kind of galvanized, but I like it black better, and it's going to scrape off, I know that. So this is the part that's going to go in the middle of the gate. I will put some pieces of wood underneath, most likely like so, and like so. And then we're just going to lock that down onto the gate, and then we can properly lock it. On this side, I can actually use a padlock to secure the gate. And I still need to make another attachment on the other side, so I can actually put a padlock through this hole. And then on the outside, on the bottom, we have to install an extra deadbolt so we can secure it when the gate is open. So by the way, if you haven't seen the gate, that's the inside. This is how it looks like. And I think this looks pretty good. All right, so let's see where we're going to install this. I think this ought to go right here. It will be like this. So I'm just going to cut off the edge a bit so it's a little bit slanted. It will look better. So let's see where this goes. So here's our lock. So we can lock it in properly. And now what's left is to make a bracket so I can put a padlock up. So I quickly have bent a piece of metal, and this is going to go up here, and then we can put the padlock up. So let me mark it and drill the holes. So this is the bracket where the padlock is going through. All right, 2 more holes now for the screws, and then we should be good to go. But we still have to paint it. That we haven't done yet. All right, so a little bit of paint, and then we'll install it. I think that looks all right. So here's our bracket that we just created for the padlock, and I'm just gonna put it up now. So folks, the gate or the door is now complete, and if you wonder how much it did cost, it did run around 985 euros for the entire gate, and that is including all the hinges and all the locks. So let's have a look inside, because we ain't done yet. One of the next things we need to do is to close up this ceiling here in the entrance gate, because that top side leads into the barn. And that's the inside of the barn, and I still have to install 2 fire detectors and intrusion alarm. But as you can see, that concrete floor is now very nice. It's still a bit wet because I had to clean it up because of all the work and the sawdust that I had on the door. But as you can see as well, the door looks pretty good. You still see some light coming out on the bottom, but that is just because we have not installed the cobblestones yet on the outside. So folks, we've come to the end of this video, and I hope that you did enjoy the building of the barn door. And there's more to come on building the farm. But the next video most likely will be about the racetrack, because I'm taking my Koenig car back to the racetrack in about 2 weeks, and I'll certainly will make a video on that one. And in between, I might start to do some work on Old Rusty. I know it's been a long time. But there's a lot of work to be done here. So thank you for viewing, and by all means, put your comments up, good or bad. Thank you.